What is a fate worse than death? Being burned alive. I saw a guy that was playing with gasoline get burned alive. The smell and sounds that he made were something I will never forget. Luckily it only lasted him a few minutes before he passed out. But the next 10 years and hundreds of surgeries were terrible. He said many times we should have let him die. My grandpa was driving a truck carrying gas. Some kid blew a stop sign, hit him, and lit him in fire. He jumped out, pulled the kid to safety, then ran to the nearest house, in a rural area. He had severe burns over 80% of his body and lost some fingers, ear, and a hand. This was a long time ago. Apparently his treatment consisted of having the gauze peeled off every day and replaced, and some kind of cleaning, I think a sponge bath or something like that. My mom said that it broke him mentally and he was an entirely different person afterward. He lost a good amount of his sanity. He said many times we should have let him die. I'm sorry. I know witnessing something like that is haunting. I've been witnessing an accident as well, and even if I'm not the one that got hurt, I still have restless nights over it. Don't know how to stomach it, also because it seems that I'm making their accident my issue when they're the ones that got hurt, so I feel that I'm not allowed to feel affected by it. Being skinned alive. And then put in a bag of salt and vinegar crisps. Pro tip, do it in a warm room because the person will freeze to death before they're fully skinned. Separating you from all the living things and putting you into a confined room with a giant mirror and the lights on full brightness 24/7. I missed 10 seconds ago when I haven't read this comment yet. That would be a terrible fate. I suppose after you will lose your sanity and start interacting with your mirror image as if it was another person. Being the middle piece in the human centipede. Being any piece in the human centipede. I think only the first person has it any better than any other person in the chain. And really it's slightly better to be in the middle compared to the last. Because the last person never even has the chance of feeling a tongue on their anus. Well, a much lower chance. I guess the whole centipede thing isn't sustainable in the longer term, just nutritionally speaking anyway. Locked-in syndrome. There's a character in the Ender's Game sequels who experiences this. The chapters from his point of view are so frustrating and terrifying. Absolutely. I'm a healthcare worker, and have seen it a handful of times. The patient looks at you, and you can tell that they're in there. But they're unable to walk, talk, eat, scratch their own ass, nothing. I think that having a child disappear and never knowing what happened is likely the worst thing in the world. Holding out hope. Never knowing when it is appropriate to stop looking. Even when your despair seems too much to bear for even one more day, you know that killing yourself would end any possibility of being reunited. Edit, definitely the post with the most despair quotient that I have received gold for, but thank you. Well, that's it for Reddit today. Going to go hug my kid. My friends had their only child, a 16-year-old daughter, disappear while she was visiting family in another country. They didn't realize she was missing for a few days as she was traveling from town to town to surprise another portion of their family. They finally found her body 5 years later under a tree in a field. His wife died quite young, many think it was from a broken heart. Torture or slavery for about 80 years. Along with public humiliation and shame for your family. Equivalent to when your ex-child deletes your Mario 64 save file. Locked in a room and forced to watch The View. At high volume. All day. Every day. We're on easy street. Rip my dude. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Having to deal with the pain of radiation for a long period of time. Hisoshiauchi, yes, that's his last name, is an example of this. He had to deal with the pain after being exposed to a fatal dose of radiation after a nuclear power plant accident. He was kept alive for 83 days after the accident. God, I can't imagine the pain he had to endure. Severe radiation poisoning is the worst. The radiation kills a bunch of your cells and makes a bunch more unable to replicate. You'll start by feeling tired, nauseous, etc. If you didn't receive an instantly fatal dose, your body will try to repair and clean up the damage, but it can't. After a few days to a week, all the dead cells that are trapped by your still living skin start to fall off because the skin is starting to turn over, as it does usually. There's no new cells to replace the dead ones though, so skin starts falling off in chunks and strips. You're in pain because it'll feel like someone flayed you, not to mention that something similar is happening to all your organs at the same time. Basically, imagine walking around and then suddenly bam! You're dead, but you don't know it yet. Your body is abruptly composed of 10% dead and going to be necrotic tissue. Radiation is a worse death than dying by fire, which was previously the worst as far as I know. ARS, acute radiation syndrome, kills the ability of your cells to replicate. Your organs basically rot. And painkillers no longer work because there are no more receptors to accommodate such medicine. So you just wait. And rot. Fatal familial insomnia. No thank you. Am I going to regret clicking the link? Being forced to live in a vegetative state on life support because your friends/family won't let you go. My siblings and I watched our grandmother live through Alzheimer's. None of us ever want to go through that. We all have an agreement, one way or another. If we are unable to care for ourselves, please give us our dignity and end it quickly. Mutually we agree we don't want to have each other go through that. I lost my mother a year ago to a brain aneurysm. I got to the ER maybe 20 minutes behind her, and the doctor told me she was almost certainly brain dead, and my response was immediate, that neither of us would ever want to be kept alive like that. She had Moy syndrome, and so we had talks about horrible situations like this since I was around 12 up until it happened. As horrible as her dying was, it was a lot more gracious of a death than being kept alive. She was able to donate organs to 5 people, including a girl no older than me at 19. The hospital staff knew us both, being EMS/FD. They organized the first honor walk in the hospital's history, and there was what felt like hundreds of people manning the walls. People from the various EMS companies she worked for. Friends, family, people from the entire county fire departments. People who knew me but not her. It was an honorable death, and I can't imagine preventing that for her. Being in an infinite death loop and no way of escaping. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. This is Golden Experience Requiem. Being paralyzed and blind for your whole life. There's a good non-fiction book about this idea called The Butterfly and the Diving Bell. A French journalist in normal health with a normal life was unexpectedly afflicted by a rare disease called locked-in syndrome. It's essentially complete paralysis. He was no longer able to speak, walk, move his arms, legs, or any of his muscles. But he still had complete control over his mental faculties. Basically locked into a useless body, but completely conscious of the horror of his new reality. He transcribed the entire book to a typist by blinking to communicate letters and words. Very sad and interesting read. My mom was paralyzed on her right side. She lost her voice too. It was too close for a few days. But she's okay now, can speak too, though still has difficulty speaking fluently. Her right hand still doesn't work properly, but no one could tell if they met her for the first time. She's basically an one-armed ninja. Being the child in a child sex trafficking situation. The tragic loss of innocence. Wish all these people die painful deaths. Locked-in syndrome. You're conscious, but unable to move or communicate with the outside world. That seems like it would really suck. I remember an episode of House with this, and they hooked him up to a machine with a mouse that could go up or down. He was told if he thought up hard enough, the machine would pick up those brain patterns and respond accordingly. It was really cool, but I don't know how realistic. Wishing to die but not being allowed to. Edit. Wow, I did not expect this wave of responses. Thanks for the love and support guys, I truly appreciate it. Smile. Just to clarify, I'm going pretty well at this point in my life. The reason why I said this is because this was something that I had been going through quite badly some time ago, and I know that we felt this urge in some shape or form. As much as I wanted to end things when it got too much, I knew deep in my heart that I would hurt too many people in my life and that it's not my time to go just yet. Right now, my mindset is stable and I have an amazing girlfriend who's my biggest support pillar and my best friend. My heart goes out to all of you who have or are feeling this sensation right now. Trust me when I say this, the bad times shall come, but they are not here to last. Reach out to those you trust if you can and ride it through to the end. Are you okay? So everyone at some point of their life. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.